What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Friday the 13th, June 1986. An explosive fight took place at Madison Square Garden between two outstanding Puerto Rican fighters, Hector Macho Camacho and Edwin El Chapo Rosario. And it was such an explosive fight that I need to go through it right here with you in the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Now, also featured on that card was a young up-and-coming heavyweight, a phenomenon, Iron Mike Tyson. He was to face Reggie Gross, what would turn out to be an outstanding first-round knockout. Let's revisit this fight between Hector Camacho and Edwin El Chapo Rosario, Madison Square Garden, June 13th, 1986. What a fight, what a night. Now, Hector Macho Camacho was born May 24th, 1962, in Bayamon, Puerto Rico. He died November 24th, 2012. He was 50 years of age at the time of his death. Now, Camacho stood 5 foot 6.5 and he had a 69-inch reach. He was a southpaw that weighed anywhere between 122 to 158 pounds. He would have total fights of 88, with 79 wins, 38 knockouts, 6 losses, 3 draws. He was never stopped in any of his fights. He would have 100 amateur fights, 96 wins and 4 losses. That's an incredible amateur career. 1978, he would win the New York Golden Gloves in flyweight sub-novice division. 1979, New York Golden Gloves bantamweight open class division. That same year, in 79, Inner City Golden Gloves bantamweight open class. In 1980, New York's Golden Glove bantamweight open class. Now, 1980 was a very, very good year for boxing. You see, you would have the two Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran fights, Montreal and New Orleans. And you would also have two Danny Ray Lopez and Salvador Sanchez fights. But Hector Camacho, at this point in his career, would be a star. Now, he would win some outstanding fights. After turning pro in 1980, he would defeat Rafael Bazooka Limon by a 5th round technical knockout. And the great thing about it is he would defeat Rafael Limon in his hometown, San Juan, Puerto Rico. Now, he would get that fight. It was a vacated fight, or a vacated belt, when Bobby Chacon would refuse to come to Puerto Rico to defend his title. So they would strip Bobby Chacon. And Rafael Bazooka Limon was a worthy adversary because he had some great fights with Bobby Chacon. So he accepted the challenge. So since that belt was vacant, Hector Camacho was the number 1 ranked contender. That fight would be on in San Juan. And Camacho, very flashy and flamboyant, would come in dancing as usual. And he would defeat Rafael Bazooka Limon in 5 rounds. They would rule it as a technical knockout. And a new star is born in the Puerto Rican community. He would defeat Jose Luis Ramirez by unanimous 12-round decision, August 10th, 1985, to win the WBC Lightweight Championship strap. And that's the belt that would be on the line for the fight in Madison Square Garden, Friday the 13th, 1986. between Edwin El Chapo Rosario. Now, Edwin El Chapo Rosario was born March 15th, 1963, in Puerto Rico. He died December 1st, 1997. He was 34 years of age at the time of his death. It was due to drugs and alcohol. And it's unfortunate because he was on his way to perhaps winning another world title. He was staying 5'6" and had a 66.5-inch reach. And at this time of his career, he would have total bouts of 53 total fights, 47 wins, 41 knockouts, 6 losses, and 5 by knockouts himself. See, Rosario was knocked out 5 separate occasions because of the fact that he was a warrior. And he would take his chances against devastating punches, such as Julio Cesar Chavez. And that fight took place June 1986 as well. Now, in Hector Macho Camacho, I remember when he was training for that fight with Edwin El Chapo Rosario. And at this time, he was well respected. He would walk around New York with a huge gold chain, nameplate saying Camacho. Then he had another one that said Macho. Now, early in his career, he would be trained by Billy Giles, a New York trainer. But Camacho would switch trainers more times than a magician would switch card tricks. I mean, he was something else. He'd be trained by Jimmy Montoya and many others, Hector Rooker, you name them. But Camacho was a young, flashy young man. He was a sight to see in his training sessions. And when he was preparing for Edwin El Chapo Rosario, he was a sure winner because of the opponents that he went through. One of the fastest fighting young men at that time. But when they would get in the ring in Madison Square Garden, and that bell rang, everyone was excited. But I gotta tell you something. Camacho was hurt very bad with a straight right hand in the 5th round. And he started to move. And Rosario would stalk him around like a tiger chasing a gazelle. But Camacho would fight back. And that's what get him in trouble again in the 11th round. And as both men were exchanging punches, it looked like Rosario, who was the stronger and harder puncher, would dictate the pace of the fight. Now Camacho would win the decision. And this would be devastating to the New York crowd. And Camacho started to lose a lot of fans because, in all honesty, everyone thought Edwin El Chapo Rosario pulled it off. You see, Camacho was a commodity in New York, and Rosario was a commodity in Puerto Rico. And although Camacho was born in Puerto Rico, but he represented New York. No fault of his own. That's where he was moved to as a young boy. And his fans started to turn on him. And it was difficult for Camacho for a long time to get over that loss. Because although he won, I believe deep in his heart he has the feeling that he might have lost. And he would get in his sports car and drive all the way down to Florida. And to redeem himself, he would be on a double-headed card with Edwin El Chapo Rosario. Camacho would face Cornelius Boza Edwards. And Rosario would face Razai Livingston Bramble. See, Bramble would defeat Ray Mancini. And Edwin El Chapo Rosario it was so convincing to the State Athletic Commission. They felt he won himself. They gave him another shot with Razai Bramble. And he would knock out Bramble in 2 rounds on the same card that Camacho would face Cornelius Boza Edwards. And Camacho would be stripped of his belt because he didn't give Camacho a second opportunity. The Camacho would win the WBA Lightweight Championship strap from Livingston Bramble. And he would put it on the line with Julio Cesar Chavez. And Rosario would be knocked out in about 11 rounds. But Hector Camacho would continue with his career as well. Now he would defeat Ray Boom Boom Mancini by 12-round split decision on March 6, 1989. He would win the WBO Junior Welterweight Championship. Now he would lose his first fight to Greg Haugen and lose his WBA title, 12-round split decision on February 23, 1991. Camacho would come into the ring on a rematch with a military outfit, helmet, combat boots, and all. And he would defeat Greg Haugen in a 12-round split decision, May 18, 1991, to regain his WBO strap. He would challenge Julio Cesar Chavez for the WBC Super Lightweight Championship, September 12, 1992. And he would lose the 12-round unanimous decision. He took a bad beating in that fight, especially against the ropes. We challenged Felix Tito Trinidad for the IBF Welterweight Championship strap. Now, Trinidad had taken that title away from Maurice Blocker with a bodacious left hook. And Camacho would challenge Trinidad. Once again, you would have a Puerto Rican rivalry. And once again, in this case, Camacho would come up short. And at this time, Camacho really wouldn't take care of himself. He was in a club scene. And at this point, I believe he was just fighting for the money. Now, he fought Tito Trinidad January 29, 1994. And he would take another beating. He would defeat 45-year-old I have him 3 greatest lightweight champions of all time. Roberto Duran, he scored a 12-round decision, June 22nd, 1996. He would defeat Sugar Ray Leonard. And he would knock him out in 5 rounds, March 1st, 1997. He would challenge the 1992 Olympic gold medalist Oscar De La Hoya for the WBC Welterweight Championship strap September 13th, 1997. But he would defeat great fighters such as Rafael Lamon, Jose Luis Ramirez, Edwin El Chapo Rosario, Cornelius Boza Edwards, Ray Mancini, Vinny Panzienza, Greg Haugen. I mean, unbelievable. Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran. He would lose to Julio Cesar Chavez and Felix Trinidad and Oscar De La Hoya. These are all Hall of Fame quality fighters. So Camacho was definitely the goods. Now Rosario would win 7 out of 5 championship fights. He would score 5 knockouts in those title fights. He would win 5 out of 6 fights against future, current, and former championship fighters. Now, the Ring magazine would have Edwin El Chapo Rosario, number 36, was the greatest punches of all time, in their issue in 2003. He would face Larita Gonzalez, May 1st, 1991, and score a 3rd round knockout for the WBA Junior Welterweight Championship strap. He would face Juan Nazario, win 1 and lose 1. And when he lost to Juan Nazario at Madison Square Garden, he was scheduled to face Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker. R.I.P. to Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker. But he was knocked out, and that belt went over to Juan Nazario. And then Whitaker would knock out Juan Nazario in 1 round in State Line, Nevada. But this was the declining moment for Rosario, because Rosario would be knocked out by Julio Cesar Chavez in 11 rounds in Vegas earlier in his career. The beating he would suffer from Chavez was a thing to behold. He would face Frankie Randall, who would knock him out in 7 rounds. January 93. I had some great moments watching Rosario and Camacho. As a young man coming up in New York, I would go to Madison Square Garden religiously and watch all the great fighters. I would go to every gym in New York religiously. I've seen every last one of these guys train. Now, Rosario I've seen a few times because he was basically from Puerto Rico. But when he came in town to train, he would normally train in Gleason's gym or Gramity's gym. I might have seen him once in Times Square's boxing ring, I'm not too sure. But Camacho I've seen all the time. Hundreds of times. And he never changed. It was like Muhammad Ali, always kidding around, always dancing in the gym. Everybody knew him. Cops, firemen, everybody knew Camacho. And it was just an outstanding time, those 1980s. But Camacho would face everyone. And he had the fastest hands that I've seen watching fights besides Meldrick Taylor. And I don't see any reason why he wouldn't defeat the guys in his class today. The Lomachenkos, all of them. it would actually be easy work for Camacho, because Camacho worked in angles, he had fast hands, he had a very, very high IQ. What most people remember about Camacho was when he went up in weight. But he was in those lower weight divisions, from featherweight to lightweight. And he took his career seriously. No one was beating Camacho. Now Camacho avoided Aaron Pryor. Whatever the reasons. But that was the fight everyone wanted to see. I would have loved to have seen Camacho had Salvador Sanchez still been around. Gomez. I mean, we had a lot of great fights out there. Rocky Lockridge, R.I.P. to him. R.I.P. to Gomez. R.I.P. to Camacho. R.I.P. to Edmund El Chapo Rosario. R.I.P. to Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker. Great lightweights. But on the night of June 13th, 1986, that was a great night of boxing. And like I said, you had Iron Mike Tyson scheduled to face Reggie Gross. Now, Reggie Gross was able to get that fight with Tyson because he defeated R.I.P. to Smoking Burt Cooper. And Burt Cooper was coming up in the rankings, and Reggie Gross slowed down that process with a defeat, an actual technical knockout of Smoking Burt Cooper. I remember that fight like yesterday. But the moves that Mike Tyson would display that night in Madison Square Garden by knocking out Reggie Gross was the talk of the night. And I had the pleasure of seeing that fight in the fourth row. And like I said, it was a great night of boxing. Hector Macho Camacho and Edwin El Chapo Rosario, two of the best lightweights at that time. 1986. Rosario had left moments in his career with Ramirez, and he would turn his back and he would lose to Ramirez. He would get his title back and he would lose to Chavez. And it seemed like the big fights, he was just up, coming up short. But what he gave us that night in Madison Square Garden, complete effort and complete Edwin El Chapo Rosario. So salute to these outstanding fighters. Hector Camacho, Edwin El Chapo Rosario. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fights and all great fighters never be forgotten on my channel. Salute.